This is the Beats Working Show. We're on a mission to redeem work, the word, the place, and the way. I'm your host, Mark Wright. Join us because getting paid to practice beats working to get paid. You told me one of the challenges that you run up against is you wish that more people in the workplace would assume good intent as they go about their day. For that manager listening, what does that look like in an organization, and what's the damage that can be done, Caryn?
Yeah, and maybe it was the isolation of the pandemic that accelerated this so much, but people seem to have a hair trigger to assuming that, whatever was said or done or if it didn't land well on you, you assume the worst possible intentions on the part of the perpetrator. And so first, just pausing, take a breath. Well, what else could this be? Ask the person. Wow, when you say that, that makes me feel, just like they tell you in marital counseling, don't say you always. It's like, that makes me feel, and I don't want to feel that way. And so just taking it to the source, talking directly. Well, let me repeat back to you what I heard. Is that what you really meant to say? But yeah, we're hair trigger to assume the worst. And among my younger cohort of employees, hair trigger toward grievance. Oh, you didn't meet my deadline, so you're disrespecting me personally. Not that, oh, you were busy or you had something going on that I didn't know about. And just trying to get people to pause, ask more questions, talk before you go to email, go in person, pick up the phone. I just published a couple of articles that I got from the Harvard Business Review newsletter, when to and not to use email, because email is a terrible tool. If what is the percentage? 85% of communication is nonverbal. And when it's in an email or even a text, you've stripped away 85% of the meaning. And so that just lays fertile ground for assumption of bad intent. So just, and this is the continual challenge, because our young people, they don't feel empowered often, and they feel put upon, and they wonder, well, why aren't I there? And why are you making that salary, Caryn? Even though you've been in the business 50 years, why are you making that salary and I'm making this salary? And so there's just the weight of this grievance, this culture of grievance that I find really wearying. For me, that's one of the worst things in the workplace. And I really have to work hard to keep my positive attitude and counterbalance that, because it's like, why didn't you just go talk to the person? Why did you? And, you do have power. Everybody's not equal, but everybody has the right, to ask a question and follow up. And so getting people to feel empowered in that way has been a challenge in our workplaces. I'm sure it is in a lot of workplaces. So it's just continual training and encouragement.
Yeah, and getting people to understand how beautiful and disarming it is. Like if somebody quote unquote disrespected me and then I just run to my computer and I send a message to my supervisor, you won't believe what happened to me. Instead of doing that, just going to that person and saying, I don't think you meant to hurt my feelings on this one, but like you said before, say it back to them. And can you help me understand this and just how much better the workplace would be if everyone navigated? The problem with that scenario is it takes courage. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to initiate that conversation. But as you said, if we really want work to be redeemed, we have to assume good intent in the workplace, and we have to communicate in a way that builds up those relationships and doesn't call them into question and tear them down.
I think the other thing that's key, Mark, is management has to take the chip off its shoulder and be transparent and answer questions. And you're going to have to answer the same questions over and over and over again, because, your team doesn't live your tier of the workplace every day. And so it doesn't stick on the first time. So you're going to have to repeat it. And then some people will keep asking the question because they don't like the response. And they think, if I keep asking, especially reporters, if I keep asking, I'll get a different answer. No, you won't. But we do, like my C-suite, we call the DLG, the division leads group. We, on a monthly basis, have a convening where it's called DLG Ask Us Anything. And we spend an hour with whoever shows up in the room, and they can just ask us anything. And we answer. And if we don't have the answer in the moment, we go fetch the answer and bring it back around. And then we have monthly all hands, all staff meetings where we're talking about the product. There's a standing agenda item where we have comments from listeners because, again, we're focusing on our constituent service, but showing people the finances, the good, bad, and the ugly. We have all hands meetings that are totally focused on the finances. And so the contraction in expense that we had to announce this week, the handwriting was on the wall. The staff, there was still some surprise, but we've been honest with the staff about this run rate isn't looking good for how fast we're pivoting to get digital consumers to give. And so you just have to, take off those epaulets and get real and talk to people and share information and not be offended by questioning.
I'd love to talk more about the idea of finances. KUOW is a nonprofit organization. And when we spoke a few weeks ago, you said that one thing that's damaging the nonprofit world is the expectation of very, very low overhead.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we do as people who give to philanthropic organizations is we take a look at their overhead percentage. And if it's too high, we say they must be wasting money. But you suggest a healthier model when it comes to assessing nonprofits. And I'd love for you to let our listeners know that.
Yeah, overhead is not a good measure because, so look at where KUOW is now. I like to say we went from kind of a two-ring circus of the live broadcast, pushing content out, and then a website. And we've gone from a two-ring circus to a 12-ring circus with all of the different podcasts and events and a web that has interactive things on it. So it has grown a lot, and that takes technology and platforms. And our big new thing is we're getting ready to get a really robust mobile app, because for our younger potential audience, everything is through this device, this smartphone. And so, yeah, it's going to cost $10,000 a year to contract with a firm that's going to do our app, skin it to look like us, do all the bells and whistles. And so, yes, that's probably going to rack up in the overhead or infrastructure column, but it's necessary for our survival and growth and future sustainability and audience service. So you can't just look at that. I think, a more realistic measure is how many people are you serving, who are you serving, how are you serving them, and that overhead figure should play less large in the services that kind of judge and rate nonprofits like Charity Navigator. That should loom smaller on the horizon, especially now when we're having to invest so much in technology to reach new audiences.
Well, Caryn, as we start to wrap things up, I'd love your perspective on the future of journalism. I have a son who's in college. He wants to be a journalist.
Yeah.
And
Poor guy. No.
And I'm proud of him. He started writing articles in high school for the local paper here, and he's doing it in college. And I just told him, look, we're not sure about the future of journalism, but the skills that you're going to be building will be setting you up for success in whatever you want to do. Communication is such a valued skill. But as you look at the future of our democracy and you look at how siloed we are in how we consume quote unquote news content now, are you concerned about the future of our democracy? I feel like public radio is one of the last beacons of hope.
I am somewhat concerned, and yet I'm also hopeful. I think it's going to be on the backs of the journalism industry to tell stories differently. Try as we might, sometimes our political coverage and election coverage devolves into this horse race and poll ratings and who's raised the most money. And, again, we need to center the human experience. I heard an interview on our air today about a young woman who was a single mom, very food insecure, trying to make it through college, and it was all about her humanity really came through, and she's doing much better now. But it's like, wow, that was a political science lesson rolled up into a 35-minute interview, and it was told in a way that it would hard to be polarized about that story, because you're hearing and empathizing with this woman's journey. And so I think, we have to make our stories more human centered. How is the news of the day landing on individual humans? And it's more interesting. Audio is still compelling to people, since cave times when we were sitting around the fire, telling stories and writing pictures on the stone on the cave. Stories are compelling. They're still compelling. Our website broke from 500,000 people trying to do page views of the story we did about the cougar attack on the older women biking club. And these women, these 50 plus age women battled a cougar for 45 minutes. It was riveting. It was riveting. And they had the audio of the 911 call of, okay, we got him on the ground and we're holding him down with a bike, but he's fighting back. And I was like, in mid, holding my coffee, riveted with this story. So audio continues to be compelling. Younger audiences, we need to hook them with a good headline, a good story, and then you can go deeper with, oh, there's historical context or racial implications. But, the story, we're going to have to become consummate storytellers again, and then give people all the good stuff that they need to know about that story, rather than going in with just facts and figures. And that's boring to people. Nobody wants that, or it's stressful to them. Nobody wants more stress in their life. During the pandemic, there were actually healthcare providers who were saying, don't listen to the news. And I was like, oh my God, don't say that. But yeah, I think if we tell stories properly, we keep humans at the center of the story, we're inclusive in our representation of perspectives, I think we do have a future. I'm hoping.